Welcome back, everybody. I'm Danny again, Senior Analytical Training Consultant here at SAS, and we're going to continue on our storyline of the SAS Custom Step. If you've missed anything up till now, go check out the links to our other parts of this video down below. That way you can catch up if there's something that you might have missed. So what we're going to try to move on to now is the code part. Now, we've taken the time to organize ourselves. We've taken the time to build the actual graphical interface that we're going to present as the face of our custom step. Now it's time to link everything behind the scenes. Now, remember I mentioned that this is actually one of the biggest connection points between a custom task and a custom step, is connecting the graphical interface back to the actual code that's running in the background for you in this regard. Now, remember, we were very, very careful about what we named our IDs for the objects in the graphical interface, because you're going to see them again. They're going to be our actual macro variables that we're going to utilize and reference as we go through this part of the development. So join me. Now, here we are still on our graphical interface. To get to where the code actually resides will be the Program button tab that you see at the very top left corner here, just above the control library. Now, the one thing that I'll go ahead and tell you is I've already put the code here that I'm going to utilize. Again, through the magic of YouTube, I've already got this ready for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the code that I have here and illustrate how I'm referencing the different objects and pulling everything together. Quick disclaimer. The approach and the methodology and the structure of the program code that you're about to see was decided upon by me. You have the ultimate choice of how you would like to structurally set up this code. Now, is mine the only way to do it? Absolutely not. You have different ways that you like to organize your code, create your code, and disseminate out how things might have hiccups and easily fix them in the ways that you write your structural code background. So don't think that my way is the only way. It definitely isn't. But you might see the way I'm thinking and how I can bring things together by the way we actually do this. So let me click on this Program tab. Now, there is going to be a comment placeholder line of code that will be in here. You're welcome to delete that. It's a comment. It'll never get executed unless you delete something and mess that up. So I always tell people, just go ahead and take it out. That way you don't have to worry about it. But here is my program code that's running in the background. Now, I am going to start with the ultimate ending. Let's go down here to the PROC itself, down here on the bottom. Now, notice that there is a macro here for PROC, P-R-O-C. I'll talk about that later. But if you think about our code, which, by the way, I still have sitting here in a tab so that I can reference, I want to sit here and say, basically, I want to build this code again as I'm actually going through this. So there's the PROC line with all of the options. There are these input lines. And then there's the score line. So let me go back to my example, and I'm still on my Program tab. Look at what you see down here at the very bottom. There's my procedure line. There's my input lines. There's my score line. There's the run. But watch what's inside of it. Ampersand, int vars list. Ampersand, cat vars list. Ampersand, output data. Go back to the previous video when we were talking about the graphical interface and building it. You'll notice that those are the ID names. For the column selectors, for the output data set. So I pulled them in directly right here. Now, there's a technicality here. Int vars list, cat vars list wasn't the actual name of the ID. I've expanded it slightly. What did you do, Danny? I thought you said that I had to use the actual ID name that we created. Yes, but let me show you. I'll get there. So let's talk about the PROC line, okay? The actual procedural line that you're going to want to actually have created. Now, here's where things get fun and you can get a little bit imaginative. Are there certain pieces of a procedural line or a line of code that are going to be consistent every time? If there are, let that be written separately as a macro variable holder to hold all of that. Then you can go through and say, well, based upon the checkboxes, based upon the radio buttons, what can I then adapt into this? Might make things a little bit cleaner. Again, is my way the only way? Absolutely not. So let's look at what we've got here. So notice right here, I have a %let proc, P-R-O-C, my macro, is equal to, notice, the proc k-class data equals, check it out, ampersand input data, that's from my input data set, and then the distance equal Euclidean, distance nom equal binary are things that are consistent that I did not say were any expanding or generalizing elements. So this is now saved as the macro variable proc. If you didn't check any checkboxes, this won't get changed. Now, you are going to have a radio button selected because you picked one as default, and a radio button has to be selected. Checkboxes can both be off. So let me show you what I did. So look at this macro function called procline. Gotta love the name, right? %if ampersand input int. Who was that? That was our checkbox for do you want to impute a mean for any missings for the interval variables. %then, %do. The thing is this macro is going to be 1 if you checked it, 0 if you didn't. So that's my Boolean question. Notice what I do. If it's true, %let proc equals ampersand proc, call what we've got, and then add to it impute equals mean. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the category. Input nom equals mode. I'm taking what currently is on that proc line and I'm adding onto it based upon your decisions. Now, how about the radio buttons? How do I decide there? Notice my Boolean question. Radio cluster equals specify, radio cluster equals calculate. Remember when I told you that we separated the actual value from a label? This is where it's going to come in handy. And notice, I again just append on the appropriated piece of code dependent upon what's there. Notice max clusters equals ampersand num cluster. That is the numeric field where we typed in how many clusters that we want. Are you seeing why it is extremely important to remember your ID names? All of these are coming back. So please make sure that you use names that make sense to you, okay? Because you're maybe not going to always remember to go back and double check, but if you make a mistake, it's not going to know what you're saying. So keep that in mind. Now, that int vars list, cat vars list, what did I do? Go up here to the top. Oh, before I say that, I actually execute the macro, %proc line down here. Now look here at the very top. I create an empty macro called cat vars list and int vars list, meaning no variables are currently selected. Then I create a macro, I call it predictors. Again, I'm picking a name. One thing that you have to realize is that these objects will create their own macro variables that you can utilize. Take advantage of these automatically made macros because they will be your best friends. Trust me. For example, how many variables were selected in the category list? in the interval list? Well, there's going to be a macro called cat vars, my ID, underscore count. That's how many variables in that column selector were selected by the user. So I can actually do a nice little loop that goes through that and grabs each of those items. Now, let me go ahead and clarify this. There are better ways and other ways that I can actually go through and grab all of the variables that were selected in that column selector. I'm showing you this one because this is a really cool way to get to each one separately. If I have a list of 4 categorical variables selected, the first one is called cat vars underscore 1 underscore name. That is the first one that was selected by my user. Cat vars underscore 2 underscore name is the second one, and so on and so on. What if you wanted to go through the list and individually do certain things to the variables in a pre-processing step before it goes into your code? This is a great way to do it. Now, yes, there are other ways that you can pull the entire list at one time. If you don't need to do any pre-processing, go to. Like I said, there's no one right or wrong way to do this. It's what's comfortable to you and actually accomplishes the goals that you set for this custom step. So you can see that I do this for cat vars list and I do it for int vars list. I close the macro, I call the macro so it actually gets calculated, and that's what's utilized down here in this final proc line for the input list for the interval and the categorical variables. Now, if there were more things that I wanted to add, this code would be longer. If I approach this slightly differently, I could have done everything in line with a bunch of ifs, but then to me, I don't think that this would be as clean of a read. I don't think that it would be as clean of a fix if there's a mistake. Like I said, everybody has their way of coding. Everybody has their way of scaffolding. Everybody has their way of debugging. Whatever works best for you, do it. That's the best thing you can do in this situation. But guess what, everybody? That's the program code. That program code has now pulled the items based upon what you've said inside of the UI and is now going to fill these in, and it will generate that PROC K-Clus code based upon your decisions. So we've designed the UI. We've linked the code to the UI. Guess what's next? Well, it's time to actually show you how to run one of these custom steps inside of SAS. Yes, again, we're out of time for this video. We're gonna have to pause here and come back again to this, okay? Thanks again, everybody, for joining us in this video. Remember, questions, comments, leave them down below. You know where to put them. Also, check out those links. Remember, if you missed anything up before now, that's a great place to find some additional information for you to check things out. And as always, like and subscribe.